Good afternoon or morning, everybody, depending upon where you are in the country. My name is Eric Foster. I am co founder of the Future Today and Tomorrow Super PAC. And I wanted to make this video because we're in a really dangerous time period in the history of our country. And it is on the heels of the tragic assassination of Minnesota State Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband, and the attempted assassination of Minnesota State Senator John Hoffman and his wife Yvette. The individual who committed the crime, Vance Bolter, a MAGA terrorist, and I'm just going to call him what he is a part of a continuing discourse level of vitriol, hatred, and demonization that, while is a part of our political discourse, comes primarily from the MAGA side of the universe. And I want to segregate the MAGA side from the real Republican side. Because individuals that are real Republicans, like Representative Don Bacon, Representative Brian Fitzpatrick, Senator Lisa Murkowski, Senator Susan Collins, they don't speak of Democratic elected officials, independent elected officials, non MAGA Republican elected officials, third party officials, or their voters in hateful, demonizing, dehumanizing, apocalyptic terms as if these are the enemies to not only both America, but to the way of life of MAGA Americans. The MAGA folks, however, speak this in full, constant view. And I want to say this because I know that right now a lot of the members within the pro democracy coalition, which is the overwhelming majority of Americans, 68%, who didn't vote for Donald Trump, including the 75,017,613 who voted for Vice President Harris, the 2,918,109 who voted for third party presidential candidates, the 1,398,103 who voted for down ballot but skipped the presidential part of the ballot. That equals 79,333,813, which is more than the 77,302,580 that Donald Trump received, and the 84,916,154 who are eligible to vote but did not vote in 2024. Combined, the 79 million and the 84 million, that's 164 million, roughly 68% of the eligible adult population in America that could vote that did not pick Donald Trump. But I'm hearing from the officials and leaders and stakeholders in the pro democracy team regarding the need to bring down the temperature, the need to reject political violence, the need to reject demonization, the need to change the discourse and stop villainizing people from the other side. I apologize for my eye. I take anti-glaucoma medication because I have a touch of glaucoma in this particular eye and it's irritating me today. So my eye will kind of be jumping a little bit. But that being said, so while they are taking that particular tack, along with non-MAGA Republicans, independent, third-party elected officials, and others, you have the MAGA universe who initially put out nice statements, the MAGA elected universe and media ecosystem, but now it has degenerated into their typical anti non MAGA communication and demonization and vilification. So I'm going to share my screen because I want you all to see a couple of things that go in line with this particular issue, as I mentioned. So, first, I want to go to Senator Mike Lee of Utah, a MAGA Republican, which I really consider fake Republican, because if you're a MAGA Republican, you're not really a traditional Republican like a Romney, a McCain, a Bill Milliken from here in Michigan, where I live, Rick Snyder from here in Michigan, a Dole, or other Republicans that are actual Republicans and don't hate and demonize non MAGA Americans. But I want to mention the post from Senator Mike Lee, in which, in Senator Lee's postings, he vilifies Democrats and basically excuses the terrorist attack, the MAGA terrorist attack on Representative Hortman and Senator Hoffman. One of his posts is that this is what happens when Marxists don't get their way. With the MAGA terrorist, Mr. Bolter, who was captured on ring cam at the door of Mr. and Mrs. Hoffman's house, Senator Hoffman and his wife's house. And then he has another post which says Nightmare on Wall Street with respect to the MAGA terrorists who attacked and killed State Representative Hortzman and tried to kill and injured gravely State Senator Hoffman. And then he goes further after being denounced by some of his Democratic colleagues, like Senator Klobuchar, and says Marxism is a deadly mental illness. So not only do the MAGA side continue to say these just demeaning, demoralizing, dehumanizing terms to describe Democratic, non MAGA Republican, independent, and third party elected officials with such hatred and lies, because there's nothing Marxist about being a Democrat or a independent or a non MAGA Republican. There's nothing about that. But that's his tenor. No sympathy, no empathy for what happened, but villainization, demonization, and justification for the MAGA terrorist attack on these two elected officials. But then to top it off and add to it, the leader of the MAGA fascist party doubles down in a different post, not specifically about the MAGA terrorist attack. And I haven't even mentioned the MAGA terrorist attack of the shooter who killed a demonstrator during the protest in Salt Lake City, the No Kings protest against Donald Trump and the MAGA fascist authoritarian movement. But Donald Trump post this morning well, I'm sorry, late last night, this morning, a attack on Democratic majority voting cities with respect to his immigration crackdown and Democratic elected officials and Democratic voters in general. So here's what he said, and I'm showing this post from the Hill in terms of what he said. Actually, let me make it a little bit bigger so you can see it a little bit easier. So he talks about wanting ICE to participate in the largest mass deportation operation in the history of the country. But then he lies about Democratic elected officials, saying that these Democratic elected officials are subjugating ICE officials and officers to violence, harassment, and threats, which are all lies. That's not been the case. But then he goes to this next point in terms of wanting them and ordering them to do more of their raids and anti democratic actions in terms of the pursuit of his efforts to deport immigrants from America. He says these cities, because he wants to target Democratic majority voting cities, he said these cities, these and such other cities are the core of the Democrat power center, where they use illegal aliens to expand their voter base, which is a lie. No illegal, no undocumented American is voting in elections. That's not happening. That doesn't happen. One or two instances in elections where 150, 160 million people show up and vote is not a quote unquote conspiracy or an effort to cheat. But then he says he lies again about cheating in elections because, in his mind and in the minds of Senator Lee and a lot of the MAGA elected officials and the MAGA mainstream media, voters who vote for Democratic, independent, or non MAGA Republican candidates are not legitimate, and their participation is somehow participation in a cheating scheme. Then he says, and grows the welfare state, robbing good paying jobs and benefits from hardworking American citizens. Democratic voters, independent and non MAGA Republican voters, and third party voters are American citizens too. So lies all throughout this statement, but he's targeting and giving language that fueled the acts of the Salt Lake City mega terrorist shooter, the Mr. Bolter, the mega terrorist assassin, the January 6th terrorist, the December 2020 Oregon State Capitol terrorist attack terrorists, and a lot of the other, the Buffalo terrorist attack, mega terrorist attack, the Colorado Walmart terrorist attack, the El Paso terrorist attack, the Kentucky Kroger's mega terrorist attack back in 2018, just a number of these, where it's the language of this man and people like him in the MAGA movement who puts targets on the backs of people that are in the non-MAGA majority coalition or the people that we elect to those particular offices. So then he says these radical left Democrats are sick of mine, hate our country, and actually want to destroy our inner cities, and they're doing a good job of it. Complete bullshit. But it's the whole premise that if you're not in the MAGA fascist universe, you are anti American. You are trying to destroy our country. So, what does somebody like the MAGA terrorist, Mr. Bolter, do when you are told that Democratic elected officials and Democratic voters are trying to destroy the country. They hate America and they're sick in the mind. You get a gun and you try to kill them, which is exactly what happened Sunday. You couldn't even get 24 hours before this man, Donald Trump, and that Senator Mike Lee continue to promote the lies about non-MAGA Americans, the lies about non-MAGA elected officials, and puts a target on the back of those officials. Now, then he continues, there's something wrong with them. They believe in open borders, transgender for everybody, and men playing in women's sports. And that's why I want our ICE, Border Patrol, and great patriotic law enforcement officials to focus on our crime ridden and deadly inner cities and places where sanctuary cities play such a big role. You don't hear about sanctuary cities in our heartland. So, once again, what is he doing? He's segregating Democratic majority voting communities as crime ridden, dangerous places that have to be invaded, controlled, and monitored with lethal force because they are dangerous, hostile places. He also then says they're not in the heartland of America, creating another lie. Heartland being typically the places like Nebraska, Oklahoma, Wyoming, Montana, North, South Dakota, places that are overwhelmingly white American majority places, but are considered part of the heartland, Kansas as well. But it's the inner cities who are more racially diverse, who fit the America that we are, a multiracial, multicultural, constitutional republic and representative democracy, that he segregates from the rest of America and says that something is wrong with us and that we believe in this lie of open borders because America does not have open borders. We've never had open borders, period. Transgender for everybody, no. If a person is transgender, they're living their life. Americans are supposed to be able to live their lives as they choose as long as they're not committing a crime. So, why do you have an issue with a person living their life? And there is no men playing in women's sports, just like there's no women playing in men's sports. Those are all lies, just complete, utter bullshit lies. But he's directing law enforcement to go into the non-MAGA communities with force. He's telling MAGA people, like the MAGA terrorist Bolter, that these individuals are bad, evil, crime ridden, deadly people that need to be hunted, need to be controlled, need to be stalked like prey, which is exactly what the MAGA terrorist Mr. Bolter did. So ultimately, where we have is that while you have officials like Senator Amy Klobuchar and Governor Tim Walz and Senator Lisa Murkowski and others actually saying and doing the right thing, you have folks like Donald Trump, Mike Lee, and others who are continuing to put a line of separation and segregation and a target on Democratic majority communities, Democratic elected officials, and the people who are in the non-MAGA majority camp. This is beyond batshit crazy. This is dangerous, but it's a continuation. And so when we talk about bringing down the temperature, they're not bringing down the temperature. And we've never raised the temperature. You've never heard President Biden or President Obama or President Clinton or Vice President Harris or Vice President Gore or Senator Schumer or Minority Leader Jeffries or Speaker Emeritus Pelosi or any of these people discuss, speak, or communicate about Republicans and MAGA fascist people in any terms like this. So we're not the ones raising the temperature. So my question, my retort to my pro-democracy brothers and sisters out here, nothing about us needs to stoop to the level of hatred and discourse and the like of what the MAGA fascist side is doing. But we don't need to put a scarlet letter on ourselves and act as if we are somehow raising the temperature of anger, hate, and division. We're not. So don't own something that you're not doing. It's only coming from one side. It's only coming from officials and media in one side. It's not coming from the rest of us. One of the media entities on the MAGA side, I believe it's either Daily Caller or Daily Signal, you know what they actually had as a headline article in one of their news stories today regarding the millions of Americans who came out and protested through the No Kings protest, of which I was one. And I'm a 10th generation African American citizen whose family has been here since roughly 1725, when we were stolen from Madagascar and brought to America in terms of the African side of my family, which is now African American. White side of my family came here around the same time. I've been able to find a couple of lineage white relatives who fought in the Revolutionary War, but we've been here since 1725. In this news article, they said that people who participated, American citizens, should be identified, arrested, and deported because we voiced opposition to the MAGA fascist leader. Come on, people. What the fuck? Excuse my language, but what the fuck? So it's time for us in the pro democracy camp to stop taking ownership for quote unquote, we need to bring down the temperature. We need to change our ways. We're not doing anything to abridge the rights and freedoms of the MAGA Americans. We're just trying to live our lives, our truths, and our ability to participate in the American dream as well. It's those individuals that need to bring down the temperature. So we need to be putting pressure and rhetorical communication focused on what they're actually saying. Don't run from what they're saying. Lean into what they're saying and say that's the problem and we need them to change and keep on it. That is how we get to a different discourse in our country because you never had President Reagan, President Bush, President Ford, President Nixon, even President and Bush 41 and 43. None of them ever used this type of language to describe Democratic majority communities, Democratic voters, Democratic elected officials, independent elected officials, non MAGA Republican officials, anybody that they disagreed with. They didn't do that. It's this iteration that does, who's left from the Republican Party and become a part of a fascist movement. So that's what I wanted to say here. This may not be the most popular perspective, but we can't be the ones to act as if we're doing something wrong when we're not calling MAGA folks evil, demonic, hating America, sick in the mind, whatever else comes to the mind of these people. Marxists, we deserve what happened to us if we get murdered. Come on. All right. That's it for right now. I will be back with more going forward, but just wanted to get that off my chest and hope that this helps the pro democracy side realize it's not us. In the words of the great George Costanza, but paraphrasing when he says, it's not you, it's me, it's not us, it is them. Thank you. And let me stop.